Welcome back, Cat5 here. In this video I'm going to be going through a presentation that I made talking about the Windows Registry. So the registry is a hierarchical structure, centralized database which is used specifically on Windows operating systems. Other operating systems, they use different methods to store information on system files, hardware, kernel, etc. So on Windows we have a centralized database where everything basically communicates with the registry. So yeah, it stores information on system, application configurations, user environment, security protections for particular software and users, etc. So one of the tools that I will be using to demonstrate the registry today is regedit. So regedit comes pre-installed on Windows, and I should just warn you that if you decide to use regedit, you could potentially crash your system depending on what you do with it, and because there are specific values which you should not be modifying or editing or even touching, and if you do so then you could potentially crash your system. So just be careful. I would advise that you use a VM for using regedit. So the Windows registry is based on two key elements, or two main elements, and those are keys and values. So keys are like folders, they're not exactly folders, and they contain either subkeys or values. And values are like files which contain data and information. So the general structure of a Windows registry would be that you have root keys, and inside of those we have keys, and those could contain values, or they could contain subkeys which could either contain values, or those could contain more subkeys which could either contain subkeys or values. And basically it's like how you have in your file system a bunch of nested folders, each of which could contain more folders or data, or files which in turn store data. So here are the main 5 root keys. We have HKCR, HKCU, HKLM, HKU and HKCC. These are the abbreviations of these keys, and on the right of the text we have a screenshot from regedit. So I'm just going to come over to regedit just to show you. Inside of the computer we have HKCR, CU, LM, U and CC. Alright, so HKCR contains information on file name associations. HKCU contains all of the settings of the users who are currently logged into the computer. So this includes information on the settings that user may have set using control panel. So if we go into control panel, we see settings that we have and options that we could set for our particular needs. If we go into the accessibility section, for instance, we could change the contrast of the screen, we could change the background wallpaper for our user environment, and basically the CU contains all of this information. HKLM stores information about hardware, software, and some of the popular subkeys include SAM, security software system. So again, if we just come into here, go into HKLM, I've got some stuff open, but we see hardware, SAM, security software system, and BCD. So yeah, essentially that would be information on software. As the names of these subkeys, pretty self-explanatory. SAM stands for Security Account Manager, so there are some information and data out there about the security of particular users that are set and things like that as well. HKU contains information made by users, it's similar to HKCU, and then we have HKCC, which contains information about the hardware on the computers, and it gets activated at boot time. So registry keys could contain subkeys and values, and they're referenced using path names. As we see again in regedit, here we have at the top, it would be the path name, and then we have a bunch of root keys, and we could go into them, and we have subkeys, etc. So register values are made out of 3 things. We have the name, the type, and the data. A side note is that each registry key has a value called last written time, which updates whenever a value is created, modified, or deleted. And that's useful to know as a forensics person or an admin. Again, if I just go into the registry, I'll open CU, I'll open control panel, we'll go into the colors subkey, and this contains a bunch of values here, which shows us the name of the different values which are available within this particular subkey, the type, and the data that is stored. So if I were to actually modify one of these, it would essentially adjust this particular user's, let's say for instance we edit highlight, it would affect the highlight color. So yeah. So here's the overall structure. Again, we have the path name to the value. We have, actually no wait, this should be path name to the subkey because it doesn't show the particular value. But we have values and data, and then on the left we have keys and subkeys. So now we're going to be talking about registry hives. So a Windows registry hive is a group of keys or subkeys with their corresponding values that are essentially saved and stored inside a C drive. So it basically contains a backup of its own data, and when a user logs into a computer, hives are created for that user. So yeah, essentially a user's hive will contain registry information for that user. So here's a table which shows the different hives that are available and the supporting files. So we see that there's HKLM, software, system, SAM, security. So for that user, there will be specific information on the software that is installed for that particular user and the configurations and settings of that software. And essentially this allows for like personalization and separation between users. So one user on a system could have a particular software set up in a certain way, while another one could have it entirely different to that. And then we have HKU default. So again, if you come into the registry, we go into HKU default, and this will contain a bunch of information for that particular user, including console, control panel, environment, keyboard layout, software printers, etc. So yeah, this allows for users to have their own personal space, and Registry Hive is basically a backup of these keys along with the values stored on the C drive. So the path which is used in order to store these hives is C Windows System32 config. So if you just go into File Explorer, it's this path here, C Windows System32 config, and inside of here we will see a bunch of hives. So we have SAM, security, software, system, drivers, default, etc. and they're saved actually as just file. The type of file is file. So on different versions of Windows we might see that they're saved differently, so it could also be saved as .log or .sav. In this section I'm going to be talking about handles and objects before proceeding to talk about registry programming. So handles are essentially indexes to a process's handle table, and each process which is spawned gets its own handle table. Entries within that table contain pointers to kernel objects, among other information such as permissions and things like that. So handles are accessible to users and to developers. Objects, kernel objects include some of the following. So we have device objects, file objects, registry, threads and processes, sockets, synchronization, etc. So we could, in essence, we could create handles which point to these objects. Users and programmers, they cannot access these objects directly. Rather, the process uses pointers to these objects. So we could use Process Explorer to explore handles that a process has. So what we do is we go on view, hover over lower pane view, check handles, and then just click on show lower pane. And if we go over any of these processes, we'll see that each of them contain handles to type of key. So essentially we've got handles to an object type of key. So here we see the different types of handles. So we have file, we have event, we have key, we have mutant, which is a synchronization object, and process, and some more. So key is the one that we're focused on. So for this particular process, we could see that it interacts with these different keys, these different registry keys. So it doesn't matter what process we go on, we will see which keys the process interacts with. So for instance, Steam interacts with all of these, AnyDesk, it interacts with all of these keys here. So we could view all of this information using Process Explorer. It will tell us the handles that it's using and gives us information on what it's doing and which keys it's interacting with. So now I'm going to talk about the Windows Registry APIs. So Windows has a bunch of API functions which allow us to manipulate keys and values and things like that. So here are some of the APIs. It's just a list that I got from the MSDN website. So in order to find this same table, you could just Google MSDN Registry API or something like that, or you could just head over to this link and you'll find the same table. I'm not going to go into these API functions in detail, but I'll just mention some of those which I feel are important. So here we see reg create key, reg delete key, delete tree, delete value, enum key, and there are a bunch of others. Also notice how a lot of these mention handles. So here it closes a handle, and a lot of these expect handles as arguments to access the object. So yeah, there was some more APIs here. So open key is an important one. Set value is another one. We're able to change values inside of keys. Load key, get value, and a bunch of others. So I've written a small program in C++, so I'm just going to come over to this virtual machine here and I'm just going to walk through the program. So I've got a function here called reg function. Inside of this I'm creating a handle to a type of key, naming it HK, and here I've got data which I'm going to use to overwrite the existing data. So this is just an array of characters, and this is the value that we're going to write into the current value. And then here we're using reg open key x a. We're passing the first parameter, which is the root key, so hkcu. The next parameter is the specific subkey that you wish to go to, so we're going to go over to control panel and colors. Next parameter, I'm not so sure what this does, I forget, but I've left it as 0, and then we specify the permission that we're setting for this handle, and then we're writing the address to the handle that we've created. So we're saying if that equals the error underscore success, then we're going to print that the key has been opened. So if I come over to Firefox, I think it was, or yep, reg open key. Here we see on MSDN the parameters that this API function expects. So the one that I set to 0, I think it was this one. And here underneath the return value section, where it tells us if the function succeeds, it returns error underscore success, otherwise it returns a non-zero code. and so we could use that to create a code block and a conditional statement. So if it turns out to be successful, that means our handle has access to a key which we've opened. And then after that, I use the Windows API reg set value. So we're taking the handle that we've created as the first parameter, and the next parameter is the particular value which we wish to modify. So I'm just going to open regedit actually, and I'm going to locate this. So actually I've got it up here, and this is the value that we're looking to modify, and as you can see, it's inside computer HKCU control path colors, and then the value is hot tracking color. So I've already run this before. The default is not this. This is something that I've changed it to. But and by the way, this modifies the hot tracking color. So you know when you highlight over your Windows desktop, by default it would be blue. This is us setting it to pink. So we could set this to green. Let's do that. It just follows the RGB standard. So let's set G to 255. That will change this to green. So yeah, the first parameter is the handle to the key. Next one is the value that we're looking to modify. After that, this is a reserved parameter, and so we just set it to 0 as MSDN specifies. Next, we look at the type of the value. So here we can see that the type is reg_sz or red size. Different values have different types. We're in colors, and all of these are red size. And then we're just typecasting our data array into a series of bytes, and then we're saying we want the size of data. So size of is a function which is used to determine the number of bytes which are used. And then we're saying if that equals error_success, so if it's successful, it will return the same flag, and if it equals that flag, then we know that the value has been modified. Now, I forgot to close our handle. I'll do that later, but essentially this should change the value or the data of our particular value to this. So if I run this, compile and run, it asks, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I put a get char here just so that I could view it in Process Explorer. But before I do that, let's just go in colors, hot tracking color. You could see it's 255, but if I come off and then get back on this, you could see hot tracking color has changed to 0025500. So before it was 255 right now you'll see that it's pink, but if I reboot the computer, the color should change. And I'm just going to go to Process Explorer just to view this process. So regproc is what it's named. I come here, and we could see that it has a handle to an object type of key, and it's accessing HKCU control panel colors. So again, using Process Explorer, we could determine that this process is used to manipulate some value inside of this particular subkey. We're not sure which, and we're not sure what it does exactly, but we know that it accesses this subkey through a handle of type object key. So let's just reboot this system now, just to see if it's changed. And actually, I'm just going to close this program, reboot it. And we're in. Okay, so let's see. Moment of truth. Boom, it's green. It has changed from pink to green. So you see that level of customization which we did using the registry editor. I don't think you can do this particular modification using control panel. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, we used regedit to do this, and our program used the Windows APIs to open and modify a particular key and a particular value. So that was just to show you guys that you could use these APIs provided by Windows to manipulate keys and values inside of the registry, which is really cool. So finally, I'm going to come over to this section. Why is registry important to know? So it's important to know because it provides detailed information about your system. Again, it's a centralized database which just gathers information from pretty much everything: operating system, kernel, hardware, drivers, software, environment, different users, security, and more. As I just demonstrated with my little program, you could basically customize your system in these little ways, which is kind of cool. It's not that significant. Another reason why I feel it's good to know about the registry is if you're in forensics or reverse engineering, or if you're an admin, I feel like all of these intertwine, but the registry could be used to gather lots and lots of information about the system, and that's pretty cool. I mean, it's an integral part of the Windows operating system and the Windows structure. So yeah, general perspective gives information about configuration on different users and things like that, allows us to customize. Skip that. Windows forensics, you can extract a lot of information from the registry: number of users, name of users, last logged on, last edited or modified program, things like that. And then from a reverse engineering perspective, you could find information on software, what it's writing in, things like that. The hardware and drivers access registry. So again, a lot of information. So just to summarize everything up, some of the key points you could take away is that register stores data on all things from kernel, drivers, hardware, software, user environment, security, etc. Regedit is the go-to tool on Windows. It comes pre-installed, and use it at your own risk. Remember, if you modify data which is integral to the core OS or the kernel or something like that, you could potentially crash your entire system. So try it out inside a virtual machine. So again, the registry is a huge database, and it uses keys and values. Keys are like folders, values are like files. We have the root keys: HKCR, CU, LM, KU, CC, and you could use the registry APIs in your programs to manipulate data within the registry, within values. You can use the registry to customize your operating system, use it for forensics, reversing, and some basic admin stuff to gather information about your system. I hope that you've been able to benefit from this video. If you have, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.